we got Denver and New England on one end, and we have Seattle and the Rams on the other. Essentially what I wanted, I would have swapped out the Patriots for the Bills, but this is pretty close to what I would have asked for if I could break down the entire situation and pick exactly what I wanted.
Well, and a healthy quarterback, right, for Denver?
Yeah, I think that's part
Although
of
this
it.
kind of makes it interesting, too, because I think this is border. Did anybody find a precedent for this? Because, like, I don't like Nick Foles, Jeff Hostetler, Kurt Warner, Tom Brady. Those were all like either before the season or earlier in the season. Like, I think the latest one of the injuries there was probably either Phil Simms or Carson Wentz, right? Like and those were in like December, so those teams still had a chance to reset. I can't think of a scenario like this. Frank Reich, in 1992.
You said Jeff Hostetler, right?
Yeah. So Jeff Hostetler, I'll look it up. But Phil Simms, I believe, got hurt. I want to say Phil Simms got hurt in December of that year. So Hostetler had played, like Hostetler was their quarterback in the playoffs. Like this is different than that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I mean, I'll look at it. So 1990, Phil Simms, which they beat a really good Buffalo team. Yeah, Phil Simms' last game was week 15. So that was December 15th. So Jeff Hostetler's runway that year was, and again, thank you to Pro Football Reference for making all of this so easily searchable. Jeff Hostetler started 2 regular season games at the very end, and then was their quarterback in the playoffs.
Okay.
So that was relatively close. Carson Wentz, I have to look this up, but I think Carson Wentz was like injured right around the same time. And he was an MVP candidate in 2017. But I think he was, so his last game was December 10th. So Foles was their starter for the last 3 regular season games. So this is like markedly different than those. Tom Brady was right after 9/11. So it was in September that Drew Bledsoe got hurt. And Kurt Warner, that Trent Green, Kurt Warner thing, Trent Green got hurt in camp in a preseason game, So like these were, examples of teams winning Super Bowl backup quarterbacks, but not quite the same as this one. This one would be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If they could pull it off.
Yeah. But here's the thing though, and you and I talked about this a little bit. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I still don't see, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I don't see a massive gap between 7th year Jared Stidham and 2nd year Bo Nix. Is that crazy to say? Like, if Stidham played the way that he did for like a middling Raiders team in that playoff game, they go to the Super Bowl and they might even be, whatever, like a 1-point underdog or 1.5 point underdog in that game.
So we've had this argument before, and we've I think the first 3.5 quarters, you're probably right.
Yeah.
The thing I think Bo Nix hasn't gotten quite enough credit for is like that number, the 7 fourth quarter comebacks, which I believe again is a franchise record for a franchise that had Peyton Manning and John Elway, right? So 7 fourth quarter comebacks in a single season, and then an 8th fourth quarter comeback against Buffalo. I think that's not happenstance. He wasn't just on the scene for those. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he made big throws, and a lot of those games, like I still can't get the throws he made in that Giants game out of my head. That throw to Mims that he made in the fourth quarter to bring Denver back on Saturday was unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like that was a downfield small window throw. So Nix has made big plays. My question is going to be like, can Jarrett Stidham do that? If the Broncos can muddy the game up and get it to the fourth quarter, can Stidham make the plays that he needs to make at the end of the game? But Sean Payton has shown an ability to do this. To me, like the best example was Teddy Bridgewater coming in 2019 for him.
Yeah.
When Drew Brees got hurt. So Teddy Bridgewater was 5-0. Okay. He completed 68% of his passes, 1,384 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks, and his quarterback rating was 99.1. So I'm not saying Jared Stidham is Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater was a first round pick. Stidham was a 4th round pick, but I mean, I just know the people who've been around him and who've coached him have a lot of confidence in him. I'll read, if you want, I can read a text from someone
Yeah.
who's worked with him, where he said, "Love Stiddy, athletic, smart, accurate, very similar play style to Bo. Will move and make plays off schedule, but has talent to stay in the pocket and make all the throws." And then, he cited a couple of games that he's played. There was one.
Who's that? Mel Kiper's texting you? Is that Mel Kiper?
It's not Mel Kiper, but it's somebody who's worked with Jared Stidham, and we've seen flashes from him. New England was gonna go with him in 2020, and I think they might have if COVID didn't happen. And COVID happened, of course, and so that cost Jared Stidham the spring, which this is coming out of Brady, right? So they lose Brady to Tampa, and they didn't do anything. They didn't sign anybody. They didn't make any move to replace Brady. They were essentially going with Jared Stidham. And then, you lose OTAs and minicamp in the spring, and they got to, I think it was right around the 4th of July, and they wanted more experience. So they signed Cam Newton, and Cam Newton winds up being their quarterback that year. But Stidham's played good in spots. Like when he had to come in and replace Derek Carr, when the Raiders benched Derek Carr in 22, when he came in for Russell Wilson in 23. So I think there's reason to believe he can play well. What I think is an underrated key here is JK Dobbins.
Yes.
Because if JK Dobbins is in this game, Denver's a little different offensively.
100%.
I looked this up because I love RJ Harvey, right? But JK Dobbins is like a true 3-down back. RJ Harvey is a little bit more, it'd be like the equivalent for New England. They have Stevenson and Henderson, and their running game wasn't quite the same when Stevenson was out, right?
Right.
It's the same sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like Harvey's a really good player, and you can use him a million different ways, but Dobbins is like the workhorse. And I looked this up. I thought this was really interesting. So he got hurt in their 9th game, right? In 5 of their first 8 games, they had 130 yards rushing or more. And since then, they've only hit that number once. So, I think if J.K. Dobbins adds something to the run game, you have Luke Wattenberg. It looks like he's going to be back, who's a really important piece of their offensive line. You have a chance to manage it a little bit differently.
I'm looking too at, I think, some other numbers here, which are a little bit more important, and that without J.K. Dobbins, we've had a couple disastrous multi-sack games for Bo Nix. So before that, I think the numbers are about similar, but there are fewer games without J.K. Dobbins than with. But you have a 4-sack game in that loss to the Chargers. You have a 3-sack game in a loss to the Raiders. Then you have a multi-sack game and a loss to the Chiefs. You didn't give up more than 2 sacks in a game at all prior to that. And he's a little bit more of a banger in the backfield. Like RJ Harvey's not going to be your dog in pass protection. And I think that that's a big part of it too. I mean, it's a security blanket issue for Bo Nix more than anything,
Yeah. This is a shot. I was just thinking about this when you were saying that. This is a shot for Sean Payton to become a Pro Football Hall of Famer. We talked about that with Stafford, right? Yeah. We've talked about that with Stafford and how Stafford, I think Stafford wins the Super Bowl this year. He's getting a gold jacket, right? I think if he wins the Super Bowl, and maybe he will either way, I think it's going to be more difficult with all these quarterbacks that are in the mix now. Your Eli's, your Phillip Rivers, I presume is Roethlisberger eligible next year, right? I think it is.
Why wouldn't he have been? Oh wait, him and Eli didn't retire.
No. Roethlisberger retired. So I think he's 5 years out next year. So I think he'll be eligible next year. And maybe Roethlisberger is an easier case, but I think it's going to be tough for quarterbacks to get in. I just think once you get past the Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, once you get down to the next level. So is Stafford on that Rodgers Brees tier?
Right.
You know what I mean? And he probably is close now anyway. But if he wins a second Super Bowl, I think he becomes a no doubter. Well, wouldn't you say does Sean Payton become a no doubter if he wins with in this scenario?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about it, winning Super Bowl, how many people have won Super Bowls with 2 teams? No one, right? Am I wrong about that? Well, I have brain freeze right now. I was just thinking about this. No one, right?
You keep talking. I'll find that out.
And AI will find out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like winning Super Bowls with multiple teams, doing what he did in New Orleans, which I think was more significant than just winning a Super Bowl, and then, coming back with the Broncos and like winning with a backup quarterback. I mean, it'd be tough to leave him out if that's his case.
So 7 head coaches have taken 2 different teams.
Right. I know there are a lot of those. Parcells, Holmgren.
Andy Reid, John Fox, Mike Holmgren, Bill Parcells, Dan Reeves, Dick Vermeil, Don Shula.
Right.
But if there's the coaches who have won Super Bowls with different teams, if you count there being assistants, but yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah.
There's Don Shula. Don Shula wasn't the coach of the Colts team that won Super Bowl 5? He wasn't, right? He was already in Miami.
No. Then? Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I mean, see, now we're doing a history lesson, a Google history lesson now, like live on the podcast, which, I mean, the young kids out there who aspire to be podcasters should be paying attention to this.
Yeah. You guys need to, what you need to do is you need to stretch out your voice. You need to give more pregnant pauses between sentences. It's basically the verbal equivalent of when you were turning in a paper in college and you made the spaces between the lines just a little bit bigger. Or I was always a guy, and this was the biggest hack, honestly. If you're still writing papers, don't use AI, first of all. But the biggest hack, and this will get you a guaranteed half page, okay? Guaranteed. And no one would be able to tell the difference. Control F all the periods in your paper and just increase the size of the periods. Nothing else. So if you have 11 font, make the periods 12, and that will jack your paper up at least half a page. I promise you.
Isn't we're going like down the like the Courier New conversation here?
Like Times New Roman, whatever you want to do, Albert. You take that.
But Courier New was the one. Courier New was the one back in the day. Okay, so this is interesting, right? I don't know if I realized this. Don Shula left the Colts in 69 after the 69 season. They won in 70.
Ooh.
So how much pressure must there have been on Don Shula then? I mean, can you imagine the conversation on First Take back then? and then Don Shula wins the Super Bowl in 71 and 72, I think. So yeah, that's but so Don Shula did, but this would give you the chance, this would, if you're the this would, and the new head coach, by the way, that won, I was like, that's what I was stalling here for. Don McCafferty replaced Don Shula and won the Super Bowl. So,
wow. How about that? Well,
Ohio State guy played for Paul Brown at Ohio State. How about that?
Of course.
So I think this is an opportunity for Sean Payton to become a Hall of Famer, and I can't wait to see what this looks like, because I think
they're going to win, Albert. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. They're going to beat the Patriots. So? Yes, I'm so certain of it. I'm so certain of it, because
the minute, did you see what Milton Williams said yesterday?
No.
Did somebody asked him about Jared Stidham, and his response was, let me pull this up here. What do you know? Somebody asked him, what do you know about Jared
Good question.
Stidham? Here's his answer. Nothing. I ain't going to lie. Nothing. We're going to watch the tape on him and figure out what he likes to do. But no, they didn't like him over Bo Nix. So
there's 2 distinct paths here. If you're New England, which
you think Denver, how long do you think it took the Broncos to get a hold of that video?
Probably about as fast as it took the Jaguars to get everything that Sean Payton said about them at their press conference. This is a season of unforced errors for everybody. But I listen, and let's do this first, because I was going to talk about the Bills, and we're going to talk about some coaching search updates. But let's do the playoffs first, because we're already comfortably into the groove here. There's 2 different. Before we get into the kind of the schematics of it, there's two different paths you can take here, and I do think that the emotional is important.
Yeah.
Vrabel is a master of this. Sean Payton, I think is good at motivating his own team, but when it comes to dealing with the cross team side of it, I think sometimes does make some unforced errors, like we mentioned before. But if you're Vrabel, do you empower your guys to come out there and say, I don't give a flying you know what about Jared Stidham? Or do you do the complete opposite, which is, I forget what coach made like a living out of this, but would
Well,
just talk. Well, Belichick was good at it too,
I mean,
like
you can
talking
even,
about everybody like they're Vince Lombardi. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, it could be. It could be like that you're like looking to build confidence in your team. And so, like, yeah, we don't think much of Jared Stidham. Like, I think the opposite happened like on Saturday, right? Like when Sean Payton called a second press conference, to announce to everybody, to announce the world in the immediate aftermath. I can't remember the last time I saw a coach do that.
Right.
And tell everybody that Bo Nix is out for the season. Well, why did he do it? I think it was to show everybody. And I think this was like good leadership by him. Show everybody we're good with Jared Stidham.
Right.
We don't need to PR this. I'm going to get out here and I'm going to tell you, like, we're good. Like we're very disappointed for Bo. It sucks, but like we've got the utmost confidence in Jared Stidham. And look, like I think you can always follow the money on these things, right? If the Broncos didn't think he was much, they wouldn't have given him the contract they gave him.
Right.
They had him in the building for 2 years.
Right.
They brought him in because they knew he could handle the volume of Peyton's offense because he had played for Josh McDaniels, which is another interesting twist for this whole thing, both in New England and Vegas. And he was there for 2 years and was really good for Bo Nix over those over the last year. Was important in the like offloading process the year before of Russell Wilson. And they made
offloading process is such a funny way of putting what happened to Russell Wilson and not hurling him out of a cargo jet at 30,000 feet and giving him the middle finger on the way down. Yeah.
That was another interesting scenario where some things were said that couldn't be taken back. But I think, and that was so predictable, by the way, from the start that was going to be the end.
No doubt.
The end of it. But I think, I do think Sean Payton, like with the amount of like the amount of time he spends on that position in particular and has spent on that position in particular as a coach and how much pride he takes in having that position right. And we've seen him invest in the past in backups and with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill in New Orleans. He has a really good idea of what he wants and what he's comfortable with and who can run his offense. And I mean, I don't think Jared Stidham's going to throw for 300 yards. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's going to be competent,
Right.
I think he's going to be competent. And I think like the job of the Broncos offense on Sunday is going to be to drag that game into a dark alley and say, we are going to get into a street fight with you.